We're back, finally back in the studio, being able to film another episode for y'all on Inside the Why. We're extremely grateful for your guys' patience and waiting for us, but we're excited to dive into what's kind of transpired in the last 6 to 8 weeks or so of our life.
And we don't need to go into details of what was said and whatever, but it was just like, and for me, it was like a huge relief. It was just like, wait, so that wasn't true. Okay, hold on, like, I want to go back, you know what I mean?
That's the blessing of being able to walk that road and still be able to make a decision, and then have wonderful individuals like Kalani on the way that are like, listen, take your journey, and if you want to come back, we would love to have you, but we want what's best for you and your wife and daughter. And that's a rare thing to hear from a coach. Hello everyone, it's Keanu Tanuvasa, and our co-host, Hinckley Ropati, and we're back, finally back in the studio, being able to film another episode for y'all on Inside the Why. We're extremely grateful for your guys' patience and waiting for us, but we're excited to dive into what's kind of transpired in the last 6 to 8 weeks or so of our life, and kind of just what the team's looking like, what the upcoming season's looking like, and basically just talk story and be able to just communicate about what's going on. So obviously we got Hink here. First and foremost, I think we should talk about one of the biggest things that's transpired recently, and our blessing of still having Hinckley in our presence.
Here we go.
If that's okay to talk about, your
course.
experience of just trying to follow what's best for you and your family.
Yeah.
Following what's kind of transpired in your mind of just understanding of potentiality of leaving, being able to talk to other teams, and then eventually coming back to home.
Yeah, man. Honestly, it was kind of it was a really big deal for me and my family to even decide to jump in the transfer portal, bro. Because like, we had no intentions of doing that whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, if you talked to me before, that decision, you'd know like I was through and through ready for this year, this upcoming year. But then, there's some things that were communicated to me that was just some missing communication, and based off of that, I felt like it was in my best interest, for the future, of my career and my family to enter the transfer portal. And that was the hardest decision ever. Me and my wife legit sat there, you know what I mean? We went to Temple and we got home and we sat there in our living room, at our kitchen table, and just was legit crying, just thinking we couldn't believe that we're actually about to make the decision to jump in the transfer portal. And it's a scary thing to do, but at the same time, it was like leaving somewhere where I knew was like I wanted to be, you know what I mean? Yeah. But because of what was communicated to me beforehand, it was like, okay, I need to make the decision, you know what I mean, to put myself in the best position for the next step, right? And that's kind of what we did. We put our faith in the Lord and kind of just jumped in there, and hopefully, we can find a better situation. I jumped in the very last day on Friday, and then I kid you not, like Monday, the coaches called me to the office, A-Rod and Kalani, and talked to those guys, and things were just cleared up, and it was just like a huge like feeling of relief. It was like, wait, what? Like it wasn't. We don't need to go into details of what was said and whatever, but it was just like, and for me, it was like a huge relief. It was just like, wait, so that wasn't true. Okay, hold on, like I want to go back. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Kalani, being the man he was, like he already had a couple schools reach out to him, Liberty, Colorado, and so on. So he was like, hey, you got some opportunities, and I feel like you owe it to yourself and your family to explore these opportunities. And so he wasn't like, jump out now, Yeah. Kalani told me, like, I think whatever was miscommunicated there for a reason, whatever it was. But I think now you have the opportunity to go and explore these options. And if you come back to us, you'll be twice as committed. And those were his exact words. And it just goes to show the type of, man, Kalani is. And that's exactly what we did, for the next 4 to 5 weeks. We kind of explored our options, went on visits, and it was crazy, you know what I mean? Obviously, to be back in the recruiting world, you know how much that is different now, man.
After so long,
you know what I mean? All of a sudden, like people throwing numbers at you and these and that sort of things that I'd never dealt with my when I was getting recruited, right?
Yeah.
When I first got here to BYU, but it was just like, like it's just crazy. It's a business, you know what I mean? You can see that a lot more with other schools, and after talking with these schools and doing all these things, it was very easy to see for me, like, that there's no one in college football, in my opinion, like Kalani Sitake.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing, and just the culture he's created at BYU. And I knew this before going in, you know what I mean? And it was like, me and my wife knew this before going in. And so the fact that we were, after all these schools and these conversations, we kind of knew, like, we want to come back, you know?
Yeah.
And I told Coach Kalani told me straight up, like, so, like, we want you back, you know? A-Rod and the rest of the coaching staff expressed the same thing, and they were just like, as long as this is what you want, we're excited for that. And so we continued to explore a little bit, and we knew it was like, yeah, there's nowhere like BYU. And after the miscommunication, everything got sorted out, it was kind of an easy brainer for me, you know what I mean? I tell you, man, I bleed blue through and through, you know what I mean? So it was a really hard time, and and I'm just glad it all worked out for the best,
Well, and that's kind of like, I mean, I know those exact feelings. Like, man, that transfer portal is, people think that it's like a lottery ticket.
Yes, bro.
To money that's just being opened, and it's actually just, it's a can of worms that you completely don't understand.
Yes, bro.
Yeah. And there is opportunities in there. There's still blessings and still ways, but it is just a whole nother experience that you're completely clueless to.
Exactly.
Because there's so much uncertainty attached to that. I think that's similar to the miscommunication that happened is also a misunderstanding of the college world right now, right? NIL is still a new thing.
Yeah.
Right? The transfer portal is still a new thing. Like, we're talking like this has been veteran. It's this is like year 3, 4 of
I think
having
2 really of like, oh yeah, exactly, yeah, NIL.
And so with that, there's still heaps of miscommunication that goes on.
Oh yeah.
And so, for me, when we were talking about it and you were in the portal and those types of things, it was just an understanding of from a faith standpoint, it's after the expression of your faith comes the trial. And then after the trial comes the clarity.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that in real life. If we were to apply that, not even just faith-based, it's, after you walk the road and you recognize, then when you look back, you actually realize what lessons you've learned. Yeah. But you need that hindsight. Yeah. It's hard to see it in foresight because, we're such imperfect human beings that just see everything that's in front of us. And so from your standpoint, it's like, well, all I heard was this at the time. But what made sense was choosing my family first. Yeah. As much as we're football players and you have a football family, you're not going to grow old with me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're not going to grow old with the boys on the team. That helmet's going to not fit anymore.
Oh, for sure.
And you have to choose, your wife and your daughter and those things. But that's the blessing of being able to walk that road and still be able to make a decision and then have wonderful individuals like Kalani on the way.
Oh, yeah.
That are like, listen, take your journey. And if you want to come back, we would love to have you. But we want what's best for you and your wife and daughter.
Yeah.
And that's a rare thing to hear from a coach.
Bro, that's really hard to find anywhere else. And I think like what coach in college football, you know what I mean? Especially in the world of like NIL and trying to recruit and things in the recruitment and everything like that. It's like that tells you, like, hey, go, do your thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. We want you, but you know what I mean. At the end of the day, we want you to pray and make sure this is the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And if you come back, you know what I mean. A lot of times when guys enter transfer portal, I feel like it's a lot of cold shoulders. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, you want to be there? Go ahead. Like, you know what I mean? Don't even come back. The door is closed. You know what I mean? Like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Type feeling vibes and stuff like that. But it wasn't like that at all. And I remember walking away from after talking with Coach Kalani. That very first Monday after the weekend, I jumped in the portal and just feeling like this huge, like, how are you saying, like, feeling of just relief and just like, because I know I wanted to be there, but Kalani counseled us to like, don't come back just yet, you know what I mean? Because you have these opportunities, and I'm not gonna fly. Because like, I'm not gonna lie, Falau, there's some good opportunities out there, and there's gonna be people, an opportunity to take care of your family right now. And he was totally right. But at the end of the day, it's like the networking and the relationships that I've built here means so much more to me than a check. And I'm just be completely real, you know what I mean? And I know what we got here going to BYU, the things that we got going on for this year, especially with this team, bro, you're not going to find that anywhere else, you know what I mean? Especially with the schools that I've talked to. And so it was kind of a no-brainer, you know? But I totally agree with what you said, man. You know, about making sure you got to make, at the end of the day, us as players, we got to make the best decisions for our families, right? And speaking of which, Keanu just got married, man. So I don't know if y'all like looked to peek his left hand now. You know,
I know, right?
I'm always just a married man. So let's talk about that, bro. How's it been? You know, being married, and you know, obviously you guys, you know, did you guys go on your honeymoon, right? You guys did that and everything. But just talk about like, how's it been, man? What are the new, you know, changes? You know, it's probably some transitions, you know, going into it.
Yeah, it's I mean, married life is completely different. It's a blessing to have so many guys on the team that are married.
Yeah.
At the U, you know, we had some, but now at BYU, there's kind of more openings and connections of guys that I can draw from understanding, you know, and learn lessons from, because they've been doing it for, you know, a year or two, and they understand what things are like in the transition of, and because that's a real struggle, is trying to figure out the balance between prioritizing your career and your dreams that you've had, you know, for me for 23 years. Yeah. And then now, you know, the woman that I love, and being married to her, that we've been together, you know, for a year or so now. And it's like, where do I balance this drive that I've had since I was a kid? Yeah. But I also have someone that I'm providing for and taking care of and wanting to spend time with. And that's just been such a difficult road to navigate. But the greatest thing that has been of support is, again, one, the teammates, you know, you and other guys like Logan Lutui and Raider, and guys who have walked the road before, be able to talk to me, and you know, role models like Coach Buha and Kalani. But then the second biggest thing, you know, that's been such a blessing is just her and her drive to be like, hey, why are you sleeping in? You know, you said you wanted this, and the accountability partner that she is, is just second to none. And it's a driving force. Yeah. And I think one thing that you could probably touch on as well is the culture of how often the wives and the girlfriends at BYU are around the team. Yeah. Like they make it such a unique family culture. That she, coming from, you know, West Valley and Salt Lake City, where she's from, and coming to Provo and not having friends, now being able to get incorporated so quick and so soon with these other women who are a part of the team and extensions of the team and a part of the family, has just been so unique that I haven't, you know, I'm blessed because I don't see it anywhere else. So maybe you could touch on the team aspect of welcoming and it being more than just the guys in the locker room. Yeah. No, that's so true. I think a lot of people from, you know, if you're looking from outside in, I mean, it's easy to see how tight-knit the players are. But people don't realize that, you know, even the wives of the team, you know, even the girlfriends as well, you know what I mean? They have a pretty tight community as well. You know, they welcome them with open arms. And that's one thing that I realized when I first got here, was seeing all the wives at like practices and spring games and things of that sort, right? At games, and how close they all were to each other. And then I was like, wow, that's super cool that, you know, Coach Kalani and the coaches like try to provide an environment where, you know, because they go through it too. You know what I mean? It's not like, think about how many hours we put into being at the school, workouts and things of that sort, and away from them, you know what I mean? And the fact that they're able to recognize that and kind of incorporate them in a lot of things, it means a lot to the wives, you know what I mean? My wife is in the same situation as yours, bro. Like, you know, don't really have, like, I'm not trying to out her right now, but not a lot of friends and things of that sort. But then all of a sudden it gets here, and then now you're just thrown into like this huge circle of, you know, this community, you know what I mean? And she loved it, and I think it was so awesome. But one thing that I've also like, you know, since being married and playing ball and being in college football, is like one of the biggest things that I took away from just this whole experience is that, like, at the end of the day, you start to understand what really matters, you know what I mean, and what's really important. And Kalani harps on it all the time. But like, at the end of the day, I think since being married, it's like, it's amazing to go home to something, no matter how your day went, no matter how hard workouts were, whatever it is, but you have someone that loves you, like, that loves you unconditionally, you know what I mean? That loves you so much to the point where it's like nothing else really matters. And I think that's one of the most comforting feelings, that, like,
you know, it could be a hard game. You know what I mean? Something, you know, we could have lost or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like I can go home and be a husband to my wife. You know, the most important role and calling in my life. Yeah. Be a father to my daughter, and I think that's been some of the most, in my opinion, like one of the most rewarding feelings. And I'm excited for you to experience that this year. You know what I mean? And I feel like because there are going to be trials. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're not going to lose. The goal is, you know what I mean? You're the goals. But, you know, you're going to have plays where it's like, dang, I should have done this. Man, I'll practice. And there are going to be practice where it's like, dude, that wasn't, you know, that was a rough practice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you get to go to like that reset, you know what I mean? Just, you know, just step away from the game and go home to a loving home, a loving wife, you know, that environment. It's the best reset and the best therapy for you. Yeah. There's nothing like just going home to family, you know, and I'm excited. I always tell the newlyweds that, like, look forward to that, you know what I mean, and just like build that now, you know, in your homes, build a home of love and things of that sort, so that no matter what happens on the outside of that home, you can always come back and be reset and, you know, enjoy that, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, bro. It's that circle that's what's going to be with you for the eternities, and we all know that, right? So
I think that's one of the things that adds to the culture of BYU that was so attractive in the portal for me. Yeah. Was the culture and the mindset that you keep the things of most priority the most priority. Yeah. They don't switch just because something gets rough. Yeah. And that to me is so amazing because, you know, I've seen videos of Kalani and I've talked to him and I've heard just by players and it's like, you know, one of the things he teaches is win or lose, we go out with a smile. Yeah. You know, and some people will see that as a weakness. And I think it's so unique because I think it's a hidden strength, is the ability to not be affected emotionally by things that are outside of our control sometimes. Yeah. Right? In the sense of, if we lost, it kind of was in our control, right? Because we're giving 100%. Mm-hmm. But to the same sense, what also is in our control is how we impact the people who are around us. Mm-hmm. You know, and what I've heard is Kalani always preaches is when you leave a locker room, there's still kids that have waited, that have traveled thousands of miles to come watch you play. Yep. There's still, you know, families who have donated and trying to be at these games and scream their lungs out, mm-hmm. you know, just to travel again late that night to get back home exhausted for work their next day. And it's like that dedication and those individuals has so much love for us, similar to the wives, that we want to reciprocate that regardless of the outcome. Yep. Right? We can handle what we need to handle. And when film comes on, we can feel guilty. Yeah. Right? We can feel the need and the change and the drive to be upset but want to get better. Yeah. But we don't need to feel that when we get home. Yeah. We can allow that to be football. And when time comes on to turn on the film at home, then we can work on it. Yeah. But Kalani's mindset, the mindset that you've been speaking on of having a spouse at home, is the understanding that the first priority always remains the first priority, regardless of circumstance or situation. Mm-hmm. And that's a culture at BYU that is so amazing and that is not everywhere. Again, we're talking about things that are not everywhere. And that culture is really rare and something that I've absolutely loved to see and grow and develop within this team. Because my understanding of that was so immature in the past. Mm-hmm. That when I lost, it was like, okay, all hell's breaking. Yeah, yeah. Like, I have to be
the end of the world.
I gotta be down.
Oh, for sure.
But that understanding really unifies this team in a different way that other people don't recognize.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a story that Kalani actually shared with us, and the reason why he harps on us on continuing to be husbands, continuing to be brothers, great sons after adversity, right? And he talks about it like there was one of the games, you know, his whole family's there as always, and it's like it was a big loss for them. And on the drive home, he talks about like how, you know, his son at the time was very young, and they're on the drive home and they're dancing and singing in the car, and he's like it was hard for him to kind of, you know, enjoy because they just lost, you know. It was a big loss for them, and then the first thing that the son said, "Dad, did we win?" And you know what I mean? And just like, and to him, that experience was like, at the end of the day, you know, your kids don't care about, you know, they don't care about what happened, the result of the game or this and that, you know, maybe when they get older. But like at that age, it was just a great reminder to him at the end of the day. It's like, the most important roles in his life, or the most important roles in his life is being a dad. You know what I mean, being a husband to his wife, and you know, when he shared that story, it was really like for me, it was like, oh wow, that's super deep and profound. You know what I mean? You know, even in face of like adversity and things for not going right the way you wanted to, you still gotta, you know, double down and take care of the most important things. You know, and I think because we have someone like that leading, you know, the way, the culture just kind of exudes from that. You know what I mean? Just the type of man he is, and so we're really lucky to have him, bro.
Yeah, it truly. I mean, we're blessed. It truly comes top down, you know, and that's something that that has just magnified the opportunities of this team. Kind of transitioning into, you know, this offseason and what it's looked like is the adaptation of Kalani's culture and the application of it. And in that sense, how we've been able to manage training has just been, you know, phenomenal. The last thing we kind of just want to talk about is the excitement behind the schedule. And really quick, I have it pulled up here. I don't really need
first question, what game are you looking forward to, bro?
I've been trained to just and blessed to be able to just focus on the next one.
I love it.
As much as people want to ask about Utah, the only one that really matters is the next one.
All right, I
like
love
that
Tom
Brady. Tom Brady used to say, you know, which ring's your favorite? He was like, the next one.
That's true.
So the next win that I love is obviously going to be Portland State.
Yes, sir.
We look at this list: Portland State, Stanford, right? We got a bye. We got
East Carolina, right? Yeah. Colorado, West Virginia. Arizona, then we got Utah, Iowa State, then another bye after Iowa State.
Right.
Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati, and then we finish here, home game at with UCF.
And then just so people know, December 6th is the Big 12 championship game, and we will be playing in that.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll be playing late into January, February time area.
I love it.
You know, and hopefully this won't be the only ring that I get this year. But shout out to our people. We appreciate you guys tuning in.
No, likewise. Check us out on, I think it's YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music.
Yep. All those podcast platforms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Wherever you get your podcast from. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in.